And Purdue Pharma and the Sacklers are kind of a unique case because they're sort of a face to put on the epidemic. They've been at this since 1996 when they introduced OxyContin. And because of that, and because of their early aggressive marketing techniques and the fact that they were kind of the first drug manufacturing company to say these drugs are not as addictive as we previously thought, which of course has been completely debunked by the epidemic that we're facing. Yeah, they've become the face and the target, and I think other companies are in a different situation.
Yeah, that said, the $10 to $12 billion that they've put on the table, you say, pales in comparison to what the tobacco companies paid out over a quarter century, which was nearly $250 billion.
Right. That settlement in 1998 set the standard for what a major health-related settlement could be, and this is a tiny amount of that so far. 572 million, settlement with Johnson & Johnson in Oklahoma, and then this potential 10 to 12 million billion-dollar settlement with the Sacklers is peanuts, in comparison to that.
John, when you think about this crisis, this epidemic, how do you think about blame? I mean, we're talking about dollar amounts that companies will have to pay. But from your standpoint, in terms of the manufacturers of the drugs, the distributors of the drugs, even the federal government itself through the Drug Enforcement Agency, which effectively signed off on the production of millions of pills, they had to know were way too many for the populations they would be sent to.
I think this caught us all by surprise. I think the Sacklers knew more. It's coming out how much they knew early on about the potential damage that these drugs would cause. But I don't think anyone envisioned an epidemic of the scope that we have. So a lot of mistakes were made, and this is at every level. This is drug manufacturers like Purdue Pharma and many other drug manufacturers who followed suit and began to market exactly the way Purdue did. And it goes on down the line to pharmacists, to doctors, to pill mill owners, to the people taking the drugs themselves. And everyone. And like you said, part of the problem is the federal government. The DEA signed, their job is to sign off on these increases and determine how much of these controlled substances should we produce every year. And they went from in 1993, if you look at the numbers between 1993 and 2014, the amount of oxycodone that the DEA allowed to be produced went up 40-fold. So that's a huge increase.
Yeah. So, John, if the Purdue settlement is accepted by the cities, states, counties, is that it for the Sacklers? What about the Department of Justice and any potential criminal charges that they could potentially bring? We've continually heard the DOJ is not satisfied that after that 2006 or 2007 guilty plea from some Purdue executives that this behavior continued.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure that will be part of any agreement, any settlement, because they don't want to be pursued criminally for this. I'm curious. I don't know how much the Sacklers are worth, but it's way more than $3 billion. So I don't know if this is your reporting on NBC's reporting on this has been. I'm not sure exactly how much, at what stage of the settlement process we're in, that those numbers came out of, whether it's actually been agreed upon or not. But I would imagine all this is going to shake out over the next little while. But it's interesting because the publicity, I think, is kind of changing the game a little bit. I don't think people will be satisfied with these numbers. I mean, I'm here in West Virginia, which is kind of a ground zero for this epidemic, and people are angry, and I don't think 10 or 12 billion is going to be accepted.